Richard Thomas finally talks about Ellen Corby at the age of 74. Richard Thomas was born Richard Earl Thomas on June 13, 1951, in New York City. His family was very involved in the performing arts. His mom and dad, Richard S. Thomas and Barbara Fall, were both accomplished ballet dancers with the New York City Ballet. Because Thomas was up in a place where creativity was encouraged, he learned discipline, rehearsal, and how to express himself artistically at a young age. In his house, the arts were not only a concept, they were a part of everyday life. He grew up in a way that made him naturally comfortable with performing and made him grasp early on how hard work is needed to go well in the arts. Thomas was already performing on Broadway and in TV shows when he was a boy. He learned how to be a professional long before other kids his age found their own hobbies. These early experiences helped him stay calm and focused, and they also gave him a lifetime appreciation for storytelling as a professional job instead of a hobby. Thomas started acting professionally as a child in the early 1960s. He was in TV shows like The Defenders, Hallmark Hall of Fame, and The Edge of Night. He was praised for his naturalistic performances and emotional clarity, even when he was young and showed maturity beyond his years. Many child performers have trouble moving on to adult roles, but Thomas steadily improved his craft, honing his skills without losing the earnestness that made his early work so great. In 1972, he got his big break when he was hired as John Boy Walton in the CBS show The Waltons. The part would become one of the most famous and beloved characters in TV history and a defining point in his career. Richard Thomas played John Boy Walton, the oldest son of a big family living in rural Virginia during the Great Depression. He was the emotional heart of the Waltons. His performance showed the character's drive, moral compass, sensitivity, and literary goals in a very deep way. John Boy was more than just an icon of Americana. He was a fully grown man who was dealing with the responsibilities, dreams, and difficulties of being an adult. Thomas's portrayal really touched many, and in 1973 he won an Emmy for Best Main Actor in a Drama Series. He was one of the youngest people to win the prize. John Boy was a symbol of honesty and hope at a period when American culture was changing quickly. His soft voice, serious look, and careful delivery made him that way. It's important to note that Thomas never let the position define or limit him. He left the show in 1977 to look for new work, but he made a conscious choice to broaden his artistic spectrum, even if it meant giving up a lot of celebrity. That choice showed that he believed in his own ability and wanted to grow as an artist, not just be famous. After The Waltons, Richard Thomas kept adding to his strong and varied resume. He was in movies like Red Sky at Morning 1971, Battle Beyond the Stars 1980, and Wonder Boys 2000, as well as a lot of TV movies and miniseries. His role as the adult Bill Denbrough in Stephen King's It 1990 introduced him to a new generation of audiences and showed that he could convey emotional weight to darker, more psychologically complicated material. Thomas became known for playing smart characters on TV. He often played writers, professionals, historical figures, and people with strong morals. He showed that he could adapt to and tell stories that were relevant to modern television by working on shows like Roots, The Next Generations, The Americans, White Collar, Ensis, and Ozark. Instead of trying to become famous, Thomas always chose roles that pushed him emotionally and intellectually. This earned him the respect of both his peers and his fans. Richard Thomas has had a very successful career in theater as well as on television. He has been in a lot of Broadway and off-Broadway shows, such as 5th of July, The Stendhal Syndrome, Democracy, Race, and You Can't Take It With You. People say that his performances on stage are very clear, controlled, and emotionally accurate. For Thomas, theater has never been less important than movies or TV. Instead, it has been a creative space where he could keep improving his skills and get back in touch with the basics of acting. His love of live theater shows that he is a real actor and not just a television personality. Richard Thomas's personal life has been just as dedicated, deep, and quietly dignified as his acting career. His marriages, his role as a parent, and the way he has balanced family life with a busy job show that he has always put a lot of value on home stability and emotional responsibility. In 1975, Thomas married his first wife, Alma Gonzalez. By then, his career was well established, and he was one of the most famous young actors in America because to his role on The Waltons. He was going through a big change in his life when they got married. He was going from being a child star to an adult, both personally and professionally. In 1976, the couple had their first child, a son. This was Thomas's first time being a parent at a young age. Becoming a father so soon made him more mature, and he regularly talked about how important family was to him, even if his job required long hours, travel, and constant public attention. In 1981, Thomas and Gonzalez's family grew a lot when they had triplets. Taking care of triplets and an older son was both fun and hard, requiring a lot of patience, organization, and emotional presence. The event made Thomas realize how different his public image was from his private life. People thought he was a great actor on TV and on stage, but in real life he had to deal with diapers, school schedules, late nights, and the duties that come with having a growing family. The birth of triplets made him not just an actor but also a passionate father trying to match his career goals with the necessities of a young, busy family. Thomas and Gonzalez eventually grew apart, even though they had a lot in common and formed a family. Together, they got divorced in 1993 after being married for about 20 years. The end of the relationship was a big emotional change for Thomas. Divorce, especially when kids are involved, is hard because it makes you feel a lot of different things at once. For Thomas, it was a time when he had to change the way his family worked while still being a stable and supportive presence in his kids' life. The breakup ended an important chapter, but it didn't make him feel less responsible or less committed to being a caring and involved parent. The next year, on November 20, 1994, Thomas married Georgiana Bischoff, an art dealer in Santa Fe. This was the start of a new era. Their marriage was more than just a romantic relationship. It was the joining of two lives that had already been established. Bischoff welcomed her own family into the marriage, and together they built a home based on respect, creativity, and shared ideals. In 1996, the couple had a son, which made Thomas's already big family even bigger and brought back the joys and tribulations of being a father. Thomas formally adopted Bischoff's two daughters from her prior marriages, showing how much he cared about them. He made this choice because he believed that being a parent is not just about genetics, but also about being there, caring, and being committed. By adopting them, he took on the role of a full and equal parent, which supports the premise that love, responsibility, and choice are what make a family. Adopting someone also showed how attentive and caring Thomas was, as well as how much he cared about the emotional well-being of the people closest to him. Richard Thomas and Georgiana Bischoff live in New York City now, a city that has long been linked to his work in theater and television. Living there lets Thomas be near to the stage, which has always been a big part of his work, while also keeping his family life grounded away from the Hollywood glare. Their home has a good mix of art and privacy, which is a great place for family ties to grow. Richard Thomas's marriages and family life show that he has been able to handle popularity without losing sight of what is most important. He has shown endurance, sensitivity, and a strong understanding for the lasting importance of family through marriage, divorce, remarriage, and the nurturing of a big, blended family. His life off-screen is just as interesting and meaningful as the roles he has played. And it is just like the quiet strength and honesty that people have loved about his performances for years. Richard Thomas is 74 years old, and at this point in his life and work, it's easy for him to think back on things. He has worked in theater, movies, and TV for decades. And now he speaks with the quiet authority of someone who has been famous, changed, and lost. When people talk about the Waltons, the program that made him famous as John Boy Walton, Thomas often stops and thinks about how the show's legacy is tied to the individuals who brought it to life. Ellen Corby, who played the strong but kind Esther Grandma Walton, made a bigger and more lasting impression on him than any of the others for a long time. Thomas didn't talk about Corby much because he didn't want to hurt her feelings, and since the memories were mixed with both good and bad feelings, now that some time has passed, he is starting to talk about how she affected him as an actor and as a young man trying to make it in a tough professional world. Thomas once claimed that Ellen was a force when they first started working together. She wasn't loud or flashy, yet you could feel her presence. She had authority in her bones. When the Waltons started, Thomas was still a teenager. He was suddenly in the middle of a big TV show. Corby, on the other hand, was an experienced actor who had worked in movies and TV for years. That difference changed how they interacted. Thomas said, "I was learning how to be an adult while pretending to be one on screen. Ellen knew this without anyone having to say it. She kept an eye on all of us, especially the younger cast, in her own quiet way. Everyone on site knew that Corby was having health problems. Her stroke in 1976 had a big effect on her voice and movement, which meant that the show's structure and her role had to adapt. Thomas has been honest about how seeing her keep going has had a lasting effect on him. He claimed what she went through broke his heart. But the thing I remember most is how determined she was. She wanted to have a job. She didn't simply work as an actor. It was a part of her. He said that watching Corby fight her way back to the set taught him lessons about how to be strong that no acting training could have. Corby still had her quick intuition and emotional intelligence. Even if she had physical problems, Thomas thought about times when just looking at her could change the whole scene. He said she didn't require a lot of words. There were moments when she would just gaze at you and the situation would feel heavy. That's acting for real. He says that she taught him how to be still and hold back, abilities that he used in his later stage work and more grown-up parts. Corby could be reclusive and even secretive when the cameras weren't rolling, which occasionally led to misunderstandings about her nature. Thomas talked about this in a gentle way, giving a more nuanced picture. He added that some people believed she was strict or distant, but I suppose that was her way of protecting herself. She really cared about others, even though she didn't show it. She just didn't show how she felt. He also said that Corby showed love through professionalism and dedication instead of overt emotion. As Thomas thinks back, he recalls Corby not just as a co-star, but also as a silent teacher. She taught me that honesty is the key to staying in business for a long time. He thought about it. You come ready, you care about the task, and you care about the people around you. He thinks those ideals helped the Waltons stay true to themselves and gave the show its lasting emotional resonance. When Thomas talked about her legacy, she became thoughtful. He said that Ellen is a part of TV history, but to me, she's a part of my own past. She was there for me as I grew up, showing us all the way in ways we didn't fully comprehend at the time. Richard Thomas's thoughts about Ellen Corby sound less like memories and more like thanks now that he is 74 years old, still working, and has a legacy of his own. A tribute to a woman whose strength, discipline, and gentle kindness helped create both a cherished series and the young actor